Hey guys, in this video I want to discuss the beginning steps to take when you're doing a painting of a forest. The way you paint landscapes is going to vary vastly differently from painting something like a portrait or an urban landscape. When you work in a landscape painting, you're working with many layers of detail that add more complexity to the picture. And this is especially true when the landscape is of something that involves lots of trees, leaves, light, and shadow. The details in this photo can be overwhelming. And so when you get started painting something intimidating like this, it is important to think in terms of larger objects and clusters to help simplify the complex data that we are working with. Okay, first off, like any other painting you do, you start off from the back to the front. I have primed this canvas with some light brown acrylic paint to set up as the underpainting foundation. Here in this beginning stage, I just start to add the basic colors and foundations. The white glowing area where the source of light's going to come from, and then I start to add the slightly darker colors off to the sides. Remember, we are thinking in terms of large objects and clusters of color right now. Forget about the trees and leaves. All these colors you are going to be seeing me add on here are large clusters of leaves in the background. I'm using a wide variety of color here as well, since the leaf colors are naturally going to be diverse. And so I'm just adding in all sorts of shades of greens and yellows and patches of orange, as this is a landscape during the autumn season. So you can just play around with some of the colors in your palette with this at this time. Just have all this freedom with it, and don't be too uptight about any type of color scheme. Okay, everything I'm painting right now is going to fall further and further behind into the background as soon as I start adding more layers of paint. An important thing to remember about this initial layer is to blend in the colors as much as possible together, but also just enough to maintain some individuality among some of the colors too. Also, don't focus too much on those areas on top where those pockets of light come from through the leaves, or the negative space. Save the trouble of painting those later on. Right now, just focus on getting paint onto the canvas. We're thinking big, so continue adding paint all over the canvas so that every square inch is covered up. That's the thing about painting highly detailed subjects. You start out big, take complex subjects and simplify them by working at bigger chunks. You can also see how I'm adding in the tree trunks this early on. That's okay too, because eventually I will be painting over them anyways, so whatever paint I get over them, I'll reapply the black and brown paint over it to refine them. I just want to get an idea of where they're going to be and not waste my time painting anything behind them that would get covered up later anyways. The same principle applies to the ground as well. In the reference photo, you can see that the ground has all sorts of things in it. Some small rocks emerging from the ground, some rough terrain, some grass, and some foliage growing out in some places, and some shadows in some of the areas. Just add the colors you see directly in the photo onto here. You can see that there's some bright yellow, some bright green, light brown, and various mixtures of other colors in between. And all these on here, add all these on here, and worry about the final details later. Okay, so once I have had the entire canvas covered up with the paint, I then would stop painting and wait for a couple days for it to dry. Then I would go back and start to shift gears. At this point, I would stop thinking in terms of large clusters and start to see more of the details of the painting and slow down my approach to painting. In the beginning stages, you're doing lots of big sweeps of paint and quick brushing. Here, you're getting to smaller brushing and more detail-oriented painting. Now that we have the background out of the way, let's start painting some leaves. I use both a fan brush and a small bright to have the sharp brush strokes to get the leaves. So we are now going to paint that middle layer. So this middle layer is kind of strange. It doesn't fall into the background, but yet it doesn't come directly to the front either. This is part where it's in between and can get easily overlooked. Inside these clusters of leaves and branches, you're going to have some shadows. And so now we need to start adding more of these in here. So what I'm doing basically is going dark on top of light. You got all of these light clusters of leaves in the background fading to the bright sky, and now we are stacking some darker clusters of paint to put in these shadows for the leaves. I'm just mixing some darker shades of green and yellow with some black and gently placing them all throughout the canvas. Also, at the same time, I'm putting in some of the lighter leaves as well, because this in-between area also has light leaves as well. Particularly in this picture, we have lots of orange leaves, so I'm integrating them into the painting right now. That's what it comes down to when you're painting leaves. You're just stacking layer upon layer on top of each other. Also, as you're painting this, remember that you can take this painting as far as you want to. What I mean is, you can take this level of detail and precision as far as you want to. It's just a matter of how much time you want to invest into this painting. I see so many landscape paintings that are loosely painted where the artist claims that they are done. But the question is, are they really? Is any painting really done? It really depends on how far you want to take it. How much time do you want to spend layering the paint, refining the various layers and detail in a landscape such as this? How many hours do you want to spend doing every tiny part of the shadows and clusters and leaves in a landscape such as this? Well, I think this is a good place to end this video. I'll be back with more of this painting later on, and we'll show you how to get even more precise in developing the final layers of this painting. So once again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.